Okay, this is a video run through of how I make my lunch ready. Basically what I use for quick lunch, red miso soup. So we got the white rice, pre-cooked, obviously. 2 to 3 eggs, a couple peppers, a couple mushrooms, either dried or fresh scallion. I prefer fresh, but what I have on hand is dried. Dried works actually great for this because it's going to be sitting afterwards. Ginger, fresh garlic, aged red miso, and some kind of stock. You can actually use fresh stock or bouillon, but better than bouillon is usually what I tend to use when I don't have fresh stock on hand. This is the organic beef version, which is actually really good. The chicken is actually pretty good. The organic, to me, tastes better. Some kind of MSG. If you aren't a fan of MSG, you can leave that out. I use natural salts. Usually red salt is what I stick to. I also use Baja Gold, which is nice, and Celtic gives a good flavor. And if you want a little bit of a spice, sriracha is great in this. All right, I usually start. Take your fresh garlic, get a couple cloves of it. You can make this in big batches also, which is very handy for lunches, because you can do 3 or 4 mason jars worth of this at a time, and put them in the fridge and they'll last you a pretty long time, a couple meals. It's good for a quick lunch. And if you want to save these for more than a couple days, just leave the rice out, and you can add that later so the rice doesn't swell quite as much. It's always easier to peel garlic if you smash it first. Actually using a vegetable cleaver from Dahlstrom. It's the Shogun series. Great knives. Dahlstrom knives is all I use in my kitchen. For the price, you cannot beat these knives. I was a chef for over 20 years, and these are some of the best knives I've come across at this price point. I think the vegetable cleaver was about a little over 100. It's made of high quality Japanese steel. Doesn't have the little edge, so you can sharpen this for your whole life. And this knife will last your whole life as long as they don't chip. And I believe Dahlstrom has a pretty good guarantee on their knives. So I'm gonna rough chop this garlic. Depends on how thick you like your garlic. I like my garlic a little bit smaller in this because it doesn't tend to cook all the way through when you're reheating, or you leave it too large. I also love these cleaver knives because you can scoop. It's much easier to handle with. The standard chef knife is a little easier to use, but the trade-off is you don't have the surface area to pick up with. Ginger, usually cut off at the root. Give it a little rinse. Wash off your ginger. You do not have to peel ginger. I see a lot of people peel ginger and it wastes a lot of the ginger. You can actually leave the skin on ginger when you cook. I tend to take off the old parts. Any of the overly dried parts. And you also don't want to refrigerate ginger. It's a bad idea. Same thing with garlic. You do not want to refrigerate your garlic because it will mold. Same with ginger. So I always leave my ginger out. I have large stores of ginger. Now the ginger, I usually do a fairly small rough chop with the ginger. It's the first time I've recorded with this setup, so I'm hoping you can see everything I'm doing. Maher, if you're going to be watching this, or your wife, this is a a variation of the white miso soup I used to make and bring into work for everybody. So pay attention because this is how you make it. And I will be making sushi soon. I know you're saying you're more than willing to pay for whatever I make, and sushi is coming. I will be doing a sushi video pretty soon. I have everything to make it except for the fish and the short grain rice. So roughly about that. And you can combine these if you want because they're going to be mixed into a mason jar, which I'm grabbing now. Now I usually stick with the pretty big mason jar, so it's basically the 24 ounce. Pretty big size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ginger and garlic. And I love that. See, it gives you so much surface area to the knife. So you can just pick it up in one scoop. You don't have to be sitting there scooping and scooping like you would with a chef knife. Definitely worth it. I love these knives. Like I said, I was a chef for over 20 years. Cleavers, these kind of cleavers, and what is this called? The Serbian chef knives are my favorite to use. I still use some Japanese knives. This I use a lot for meat slicing, and this I use for cleaning meats and general use. But these are great. Japanese steel knives are awesome. Get yourself a whetstone and a couple good Japanese knives, and you're set. Now, what I was talking about earlier was this. See this little ridge right here? It makes it harder to sharpen these. This is also a dull strung knife. It's very, very, very nice, but I don't like that it has this little nub going down right here by the blade, because once you sharpen to a certain point, it's going to be hard to grind that off. Whereas the Shogun series, as you can see, doesn't have that. So you can sharpen these knives for your lifetime. You can, if you're good with these knives, you can actually pass them on to your children. So I recommend getting knives that don't have that nub on the blade, close to the hilt. Still great knives. I have yet to toss one of my knives because of sharpening. I have a chef knife from them that has a similar, and this is much thicker. But I've sharpened this a couple times, and I hone it regularly, and it still has a good edge to it. They actually kind of leave a little bit of a space between that, so you can sharpen it a little bit, but eventually you're going to have to either grind that down because you're not going to get a level edge. So that's a problem. But I think these knives run for like 50 bucks, and this is actually German steel, and they're great. They retain an edge very well. I have only had to whetstone these knives maybe once, and I've used this for over a year. Okay, now onto the mushrooms. I don't tend to keep the stems on them, but with store-bought mushrooms and organics, you definitely want to rinse these before you actually use them. And you don't want to rinse them before you use them because they tend to get a little funky. So always rinse them right before you cut them or right before you submerge them. So, and you want to do a fairly thin slice on these mushrooms. And mushrooms will cook up fairly quick, especially when they're thin. So you want to leave these fairly thin, because when you go to cook them, they'll actually steep. And this works either in a microwave or on stovetop. I prefer cooking stovetop because microwaving is not the healthiest option. It changes the molecular structure of your actual food. So I don't even own a microwave, but there is microwaves at work. A lot of the food I eat at work is just cold. I usually don't use a microwave. So we have the peppers. Slice off the tops. You don't have to remove the seeds. The seeds actually give you a little bit of a flavor. Now, if it's in a fine dining setting, obviously you're gonna remove the seeds because it just looks better. I usually cut these in half, lay them flat, straight cut in half. And I tend to use the small sweet peppers because they're just fantastic in this. Also with the peppers, you want to give it a nice thin slice all the way through. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's just going in the soup. It doesn't have to be fine dining cut. You can do them a little bit thicker, but I prefer mine thinner because they'll heat up a little bit more. They'll still retain a crunch, but the texture is just nice when you do them nice and thin like this. Like I said, this big edge knife, when you go to pick it up, it's going to be fantastic. Very easy. So I'm going to reserve these because I'm actually going to saute these. Now you could add different vegetables to this dish, and like bok choy is actually really good in this. Leeks. Let's see. Any kind of Eastern Asian vegetable is fantastic in this. I'm trying to find my carrots, which I had left out. But I usually use, try to use all organic veg because organic's usually just better. There's certain things you don't want to buy organic, but vegetables is usually where you want to go. Vegetables, grass-fed, anything organic is always better for you. Has more nutrients. Get your vitamins, minerals. And you can add any kind of protein you want to this as well, and it's fantastic. Okay, so we got the peppers. Snooki's underneath me waiting for the carrots because she loves her carrots. So I usually save the small pieces for Snackle Pants or Snooki. Snooki is my dog's name. Her nickname is Snackle Pants, and she loves carrots. Carrots are generally good for dogs, especially organics. So what you want to do, cut that carrot in half. Lay it flat. I usually cut mine in quarters, but you can leave it at half. And give it a nice thin slice, just like the pepper. I love these cleavers. These have been my favorite knives of all time because you just right to it, right to the edge. Just a good little surface area. Right into the bowl. So you got peppers and carrots in the bowl. Take your scallion, throw it in that mason jar. Okay? Now, we're going to take the carrots and peppers, leave them to the side for a second. We're going to take a little bit of this beef base. Like I said, if you have to use beef stock, that's fine. If it's cold, it's fine. It's hot, it's fine. Because this is going to get heated later. This is basically a meal you're going to cook right before you eat. So the only cooking involved is right before you eat it, which is nice. And it only takes a couple minutes. In the microwave or stovetop, maybe takes you 4 or 5 minutes. So if you have a very short lunch break, it's perfect. So this is about as much as I use of the actual red miso, or if you're using the white miso, it's good too. So all right into the container, super easy. A couple turns of salt. About a 1/4 tablespoon of MSG for me. I like it. A little bit of sriracha. And I also use organic tamari soy sauce. This stuff is great, especially the organic. The non-organic's okay, but you don't get the depth when you use the organic. It's just so much stronger. So it's just a little bit. Little bit. Now you can add your rice right after this. It's about a cup, maybe a little over. Okay, so everything else is in there except for the peppers, the carrots, and the eggs. Now, I'm going to set that to the side. We're going to take our 3 eggs, crack them. Be mindful of the shells. Going to scramble the eggs. Always break the yolks first. I tend to find that is the easier way to do this. You can use a whisk, but I tend to use chopsticks. Works just the same. You want to make sure those yolks are emulsified in the whites. Now you can cook the eggs however you like. I love wok cooking, especially round bottom. Round bottom woks are amazing. I have an outdoor wok as well, which has a high BTU burner, and I love that. I mean, you can cook so many different meals within 10 minutes. It really saves you cooking time. I always recommend people get woks, not cooking nonstick. If that's all you have, then use a nonstick, but nonsticks are very bad for your health. So I tend to cook in cast iron or on stainless steel woks or blue steel woks. Fantastic. Also with the higher BTU woks, it imparts a flavor to it in which they call wok ki, or the breath of the wok. And it does. It actually changes the flavor. If you ever add fried rice out of a high BTU wok, you'll understand. Even the meat, if you're just searing meat in a wok, fantastic. Okay, I'm going to transfer the video over to the wok. See if I can get a good angle with this. And that just fell right off, didn't it? Okay. Well, that was interesting.